If you're ready to embark on a trip, whether that is a weekend away or a 2-week vacation, one of the things we love to hate is packing. In today's podcast, we'll give you some hints and tips to take the pain out of packing a suitcase.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
This podcast episode is sponsored by the Clean and Tidy Home Show. The Clean and Tidy Home Show takes place at Excel London on the 8th and 9th of October 2022, and everyone is welcome. Visit to get all the tips, tricks, tools, and motivation you need to clean, organise, and take control of your home. Go to cleanandtidyhomeshow.com for more information and to buy tickets. We'll be there, and we hope you will too.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find here is reality, empathy, and advice by the bucket load. Some of you will binge the podcasts and others will take your time. But what we aim for is that you learn, be motivated, and excited to start or continue your decluttering journey with our podcast in your ear along the way. Now, in today's podcast, we're talking about suitcases and packing. And it makes me cheerful, Leslie, because I love going on holiday and I know you do too. So, yes, what kind of things will we want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, before we get started, I don't think we can talk for half an hour about our travels like we did in one of the other podcasts. Maybe we need to give some solid decluttering advice. That would be useful, wouldn't it? Apart from talking about all our little trips and things, although I'm sure we will sneak it in along the way. Yeah, we're going to talk about packing later on and how to make the most out of packing a suitcase and some of the things that you can do. And everybody packs in a very different way. But before we start talking about actual packing, we want to talk about the suitcases and where they are stored. They're often in hard to reach places or out, so kind of like out of sight, out of mind. They're in basements, they're in lofts, they're above cupboards, they're under beds, things like that. Sometimes some suitcases are inside of other suitcases. And so what we need to do before we even start to pack is think about, have I got the right suitcase for what I need? Because what quite often happens is that we gather suitcases throughout probably the decades, and some of those suitcases are really not fit for purpose in the current traveling environment, let's call it. So Ingrid, suitcases, what kinds of things are we talking about and why they're not suitable for travel today?
Well, I think there's so many different suitcases available. I mean, you've got smaller suitcases for like a 2-day trip, or you've got the bigger ones with the 4 wheels and the handles that you can really kind of, well, stuff to the brim, as in my case normally happens. I'm going to be honest here. I overpack and that are bigger. And you need to think about it because nowadays, the kilograms or the weight of the suitcases is really important. So in the olden days, you had these really bulky, heavy suitcases that were like 5 kilos by themselves. But now you have to be smart and kind of go, oh, actually, I only can bring 10 kilos or 15 kilos. I can't have that suitcase weigh too much. So I think it's time to have a little look at what kind of stuff you have. Have you got suitcases with still the 2 wheels instead of the 4 wheels? Do the handles work properly? Are they heavy? That's what we said before. There's quite a lot of things to take into consideration.
Do you like a 4-wheel? Like you said, 2 wheels instead of 4 wheels. I've got lots of 2-wheel suitcases. Yeah. Are they not good enough?
No, I have 2 wheels as well, but I can see people like whizzing through the
spinny ones, like yes. The spinny ones that spin around. So you just like the spinning at the airport on the 4 wheels. Yeah. Those kind of 360-degree rotational suitcases. They're quite cool. I think the most important thing for me, Ingrid, is I don't want to waste some of my kilos on the suitcase. I want it to be firmly in the shoes rather than the suitcase. You know what I mean? And so I think that's it, so that's why we have to be very mindful about how heavy these suitcases are. But we do find it very difficult because suitcases traditionally have been quite expensive. They still are quite expensive, really. But I think back in the day, and let's face it, some of us have got suitcases from the 80s, 90s, noughties, they were expensive because they were good quality. They needed to be good quality because they were going on travels and traveling the world and getting thrown into coaches or ferries or airplanes, all of those kind of things. And now I think materials have changed. The way people have got much more clever, haven't they, about things? There's kind of metal frames in them, but the metal frames are not as big. We've got lighter weight metals. And so it really does make a difference. But we are very loath because we look at this huge suitcase that might fit 30 kilos of weight in it. But that's back in a time when nobody was weighing anything. Like you could just go on your plane and no one cared. You know what I mean? But now they do care and you have to pay if that's what you want. And so it's really, really important. But we really struggle to get rid of suitcases that are no longer fit for purpose. And the bottom line is those suitcases are not fit for purpose. And we typically keep them for longer trip. Oh, well, they'll become really useful if I'm moving things from one house to another, or they'll be really useful for keeping sentimental items in, or they'll be really useful for old clothes. I might not use them for traveling, but I'll use them for old clothes and things like that.
Yeah.
Our advice is there are much better storage items to store older clothes, sentimental items in than a suitcase, which is a whole nother podcast. But before we even start packing, look at the suitcases that you've got and decide whether or not you will use them, whether they are useful, because they are big and bulky.
Yeah. And I think also we tend to hang on to suitcases that are a little bit broken. So there's a wonky wheel, or the handle is it has snapped a little bit, but it's still fine. Or the zip still closes, but one of those little thingies that you can open and close the zip with has broken off, and now you have to fiddle with your finger to try to get the zip open.
Yeah, that's really annoying. Yeah.
How annoying is that?
But we do it though. We still do it though, don't we? We do it. Yeah, we do it.
And what people do, they take a paper clip and they kind of that fiddle that on the thingy, thinking that you can do a really heavy suitcase with a paper clip, but it's going to actually really hurt. I've got very soft hands, Leslie. I'm quite strong everywhere, but my fingers are not very strong. So I could really struggle with a zip like that. Or the handle is it moves and it's difficult to collapse in and out of the suitcase. But because we just don't use them very often, we kind of think, oh, well, we'll just put it away. But we do get annoyed. And I think when you're traveling itself is stressful enough. You want the equipment that you use to be proper. You don't want to travel hours in an airplane and on an airport with a wonky wheeled suitcase. There's nothing like more terrible, is there?
I just imagine Ingrid with a wonky wheeled suitcase battling with a thing and then really wanted to spin it round at 360 degrees and then struggling with her weak fingers to open the suitcase. I've got this whole scene of what traveling with you looks like. Thankfully, I've only ever been as far as Newcastle with you. And so I don't think I could cope with all that nonsense going on as well. But anyway, so I think we really need to think before we even start to pack and decide on what suitcase, decide on whether the suitcases that we've actually got are needed. It's a tough one because quite often this is the kind of thing that we can't send to a charity shop because a charity shop doesn't want a kind of really super heavy suitcase either, for the reason that it's not useful for you, it's not useful for other people. So if you did want to get rid of a suitcase, the best place would probably be to try and offer it on something like FreeCycle, as long as it works, because people would have reasons for using those things. So put it out there and somebody will probably use it and be happy with it. So think about the suitcases that you have that are fit for purpose and what you're going to need for that trip. And so you really need to think about, okay, am I flying? Am I camping? Is there going to be a car where I've got to get all 5 of my family in? Can we do 5 full suitcases, or are we better off putting some more flexible holdalls in there? You've really got to forward plan and think about the type of luggage that you're going to use, particularly if you're going as a bigger group and need to kind of squash it all in, because we all know how difficult it is getting suitcases into confined spaces.
Yeah, definitely. And also think about where you're going. If you want to take, for example, a suitcase that has an expendable bit on it. So maybe if you know you're going to a country and you think, oh, I might do a little bit of holiday shopping, pick up some souvenirs. You might think, I'm going to go there with the expendable bit not expanded yet. So I've got a little bit of extra room to squeeze maybe something nice in that I've bought into my suitcase on the way home.
I mean, I'm a bit rubbish really because I pack quite well before I go, but then when I get back, I'm a bit more fed up then. Like it's the anticipation. So I pack well, but then when I come back, I'm kind of like, oh, stuff it all in. It's got to all get washed at the other side anyway. So even if I've not bought anything else, which typically I don't on holiday, there's something about something being worn that makes it not quite as flat. And so I always end up using the expandable bit of my suitcase when I'm on my way back. And I don't even know why. You know what I mean? I just think bit of laziness, bit of being fed up because I'm on my way home, and a bit of general kind of because your clothes get bigger when you wear them, I think. Not bigger, but I think compact.
It's just, but I mean, of course, before we go on holiday, I normally do my laundry and I iron and I have everything, and you can then neatly fold it, right? Because everything is kind of like nicely. But while you're away on holiday, it kind of all gets a bit muddled and a bit, you wear stuff and it never fits as nicely back into the suitcase on your way home. I mean, like you, I don't buy a lot of stuff on holiday, but yeah, you want to have that little buffer, right?
Yeah, definitely. So Ingrid, let's go to a break. And when we come back, let's talk about packing said suitcase. That's important. Let's give some packing tips.
Brilliant. See you after the break. Do you listen to our podcast week after week and think to yourself, I wish I could ask Ingrid or Leslie about something that relates to me, my home, and my situation. I would love a chance to delve deep into a clutter issue that's been stalling me in my decluttering journey. Well, that time has come. For July only, we are offering a one-to-one Declutter Power Up call with one of us for 50% off our normal price. Spaces are limited, so be quick. Go to declutterhub.com/powerup and use the coupon code POWER50. Hi everyone, welcome back. Before the break, we talked about suitcases and whether they're suitable or not. And now we're going to talk about packing a little bit more, because Leslie, we kind of travel in different. I mean, you fly a lot. I go with the car a lot, don't I?
Yeah, you fly as well. As well. Don't be like, oh, she's flying and I'm just poor me. I'm just going in the car all the time. You fly plenty. Thank you very much. But yes, I get your gist. You do a camping trip, which I don't really do very often.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Let's talk about packing, because in all honesty, listeners, I'm gonna be honest with you and say I do not travel light. Wherever I go, whether I go on a plane or in a car, traveling light is not my forte, which is really actually quite strange, because it's not that I love shopping. I got loads of stuff, but packing is a whole different ballgame in my head, and I just can't travel light. I don't think I've ever been able to do it.
No, I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but before I do tell you exactly why you can't travel light, I'll talk about the times that you and I have been places where I'm like, why have you got that suitcase? You're literally coming for one night. Like, so we would go to a conference in London, and all she's doing is going from Welling to my flat in London, which is 5 miles, 6 miles or whatever, and she's staying overnight at my flat. She'll bring a suitcase that I would bring if I was going for 2 weeks on holiday. And I'm like, what have you got in there? I've got like a little kind of carry-on bag that I bought from Manchester for 4 days, 200 miles away. You're literally 5 miles up the road and you've got a huge suitcase. And I'm like, what is that? Same when we go to conferences for a couple of days. I've never been away with you for more than 2 nights. And literally, I've never seen you with a small roll-on carry-on suitcase. It's always full-blown 2-week holiday suitcase size. Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you. And do you know what I think it is? Right, you tell me what you think, and I'll add my thoughts in.
I just don't know what to wear. Well, I do know what to wear, but I'm thinking then, oh, I'm going to wear that, but maybe I want to change and I want to then wear something different. Or maybe I want to have that other top, but if I have that other top, I need to wear different kind of shoes. And those shoes have heels. So I don't know if I can still wear heels like all day. So let me bring some flats just in case. So if I do change my mind in the morning, I can still wear. But if I take that jacket, that bag is better with the other one, and that jewelry is better. But what if it's a really hot day and I suddenly decide that I want to take something with a tiny sleeve and not a full length? You see how it goes?
So it's basically indecision.
Yes.
Yeah. It's indecision. And it's like not having a kind of capsule wardrobe and not.
Yeah.
So you really, if you want to do it, and I'm with you, you know, if I go on holiday for a couple of weeks and I always also take more than I need, because why not? If I can fit it in my suitcase, why not give myself a little bit of choice? There's no rules out there that say you have to pack light. Do you know what I mean? Apart from the 23 kilo limit, that's the only thing that's kind of restricting you.
Yeah.
So if you've got a spare, apart from when you go one night to London, it's a little bit crazy, is what I'm saying. Like, you know, but in general, there's no rule that says that you can't do that. And you should be able to give yourself choice. But if you're struggling to do it, then you have to ultimately, so if you go over your 23 kilos or 25 kilos or 30 kilos or whatever it is, then you do have to think, right, what am I going to let go? And so you need to make more conscious decisions about what that week is going to look like. Because if you haven't got anything else, if you haven't got choices, then you can't make them, can you? You've just got to put the heels on or the flats or the cap sleeve rather than the short sleeve. So ultimately, the reason why some of us struggle with packing so much is because we don't commit to something. So whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's definitely you, definitely. You've said it.
And I think also it's because I'm finding it always very tricky to mix and match clothes. So I've got like that top goes with that trouser or that short, but I wouldn't wear it to something else. So then I think, oh, that's a nice outfit. And then I want to bring the other outfit. You see that's how it goes. So I can accept for 3 days or 2 weeks, it doesn't really matter. I think I probably pack the same size suitcase.
And another thing that I think is very different between the way that you and I do things, I wear a lot of dresses. Yeah. So there's no choice. You just like put a dress in and that's what it's going to be. And you don't have to mix and match with that. It's just a dress. And so that makes a big difference as well. Yeah. But anyway, so I just wanted to raise that indecision with you, Ingrid, and give you a little bit of food for thought where you need to be, you know,
I know
to think about it.
Leslie, I know it. I think because I start off with, I make sure all my laundry and my ironing is up to date. I get everything out. And then I already kind of go, okay, that's too much and that's too much and that's too much. And then I'm like still left with a whole heap of clothes. And I'm like, okay, and now I've taken out so much that I don't want to take out anything else. So this is what I'm going to pack.
I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting for us in this country because certain countries, it's very clear what that's going to be when you get there. So it depends on the type of trip that you're going to. But in the UK, typically we don't have clothes that are fit for really hot climates. And so if we go abroad, which a lot of British people do because it's freezing and raining a lot of the time here, we go to the sun a lot. And so we might have dresses and things like that. Not everything, but there will be stuff that we wouldn't necessarily wear walking around the UK, but we will wear when we go abroad. Yeah, I'm right. Kind of like, you know, things for the pool, things for whatever that might be. And so I think one of my things really when I go on holiday is if I have those kind of clothes, I want to bring them on that one opportunity per year that I've got to wear them. And so I will bring them all out of my wardrobe. So the way that I pack is I go through my wardrobe and that'll be nice, that'll be nice, that'll be nice. I take out everything that I think is a contender. And then I edit it back down again when I see, well, I really don't need 9 maxi dresses or whatever with short sleeves because that's just ridiculous. So I've got to then take my favorites. So I typically will get things out and then put things back after I've seen how many things there are. So then I'll edit it down. So I think that's one way of doing it. Would you do it like that as well, Ingrid?
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean, I think because especially during the summer when we go camping, we go cycling and we go walking and hiking. And so I need to have kind of clothes that can kind of match the activities. I normally don't do like a warm beach holiday only that I can just bring a couple of little things. So it's you need to pack and think about the weather because even in France, for example, in the summer, it can suddenly be really cold. If we've got a bad summer, even in France, it can be cold. It's not like when you go to the Mediterranean where you kind of know normally that you've got warmer weather and you can pack it a different way. You have to pack for kind of different types of climate as well.
So I'm going to put you onto the test now. So you're going to Las Vegas to a long overdue trip that you've wanted to go to for ages. It's very clear what you're getting when you get there. Very clear. Yeah. You're going to get boiling hot weather, no rain.
Yeah.
And you're going to go out in an evening and trot around during the day. So do you feel that you're going to be able to have a bit more of a capsule wardrobe for Las Vegas?
I think because, especially during the summer, when we go camping, we go cycling and we go walking and hiking. And so it's you need to pack and think about the weather because even in France, it can suddenly be really cold. If we've got a bad summer, even in France, it can be cold. It's not like when you go to the Mediterranean where you kind of know normally that you've got warmer weather. You can pack it a different way. You have to pack for kind of different types of climate as well. So it's very clear what you're getting when you get there. Very clear. Yeah. And I think also it's because, especially during the summer when we go camping, we go cycling and we go walking and hiking. And so it's you need to pack and think about the weather because even in France, it can suddenly be really cold. It's not like when you go to the Mediterranean where you kind of know normally that you've got warmer weather. You can pack it a different way. You have to pack for kind of different types of climate as well. So it's very clear what you're getting when you get there. Very clear. Yeah. And I think also it's because, especially during the summer when we go camping, we go cycling and we go walking and hiking. And so it's Well, I think we've got like one suitcase per couple. So I'm already having to share my suitcase with my husband, which does not make me happy.
Yeah, that's a
So
bad. I would never do that. Never. Not. I'd rather pay an extra 50 quid. There's no way I'm sharing. Never.
my husband booked the flights and all the thingies, and I was like, and we're only going for 5 days, which includes 2 days of traveling, so we don't need that many clothes. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this is not good. Same when we went to Rome a couple of years ago. I had like 10 kilos. It was like the most stressful thing ever packing the suitcase. I was like, why? Why did we not just get a suitcase? Or we had like one suitcase with the four of us and just some hand luggage. I was like, this is not enough. It's hard work. Hard work.
Exactly. Life's too short for that. Well, Steve's the reason why I wouldn't share with him, because he's a really, really, really meticulous packer, and I'm not as much. Basically, his suitcase is perfect. And he wouldn't let me in. Like even if I wanted to share, he'd be like, no, definitely not doing that. Definitely, absolutely not doing that. Do you know what I mean? So I would maybe have the big suitcase with all the toiletries, and he'd have a carry-on with his nice meticulous folding in there. It's not that I don't fold meticulous, but he's much more meticulous than I am. Mm-hmm. And so, right, let's talk about some of the things that you can do when you've decided what you're taking, when you've worked out that they probably are going to fit in your suitcase that you've got allocated for that trip.
Yeah.
What can you do to give yourself a little bit of extra space?
Well, what I always do, Leslie, is I make sure that I match up my shoes and I put them back to front so they kind of fit nicely together, put them in a bag, and then put them on the bottom of my suitcase. So the heaviest item is at the bottom closest to the wheels. So that's what I always do. So that's, I think, where it starts for me. And I do indeed make sure that I fold my clothes quite neatly and put them in as nicely as possible. So it saves space.
Okay. So I do things differently. Of course I do. So I would pack my stuff and then I put my shoes in around the sides. Maybe one, if it was like a pair of flip-flops or something, then I put two together. But if it was I kind of wear quite a lot of high shoes and stuff because I'm so short. And so I would put those around the edge of the suitcase and not on the bottom, because I would think that putting them on the bottom was going to take up valuable clothes space. Whereas stuffing them in the side, there's a bit of flexibility. So that's what I would do. Now, I know that you put your shoes into bags as well, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Because in my head, shoes are like, they've got dirt on the sole. So I always want to put them in a bag. And I always bring an empty laundry bag as well. So I've got something to put my laundry in while I'm on holiday. So that gets separated out immediately.
So are we folding or rolling or placing? How are you doing stuff?
What I normally do is I make sure that I fold like t-shirts and things like that. And then on the top of the suitcase is where I kind of put my nicer tops and my nicer trousers as wide as possible. So over the length of the suitcase, basically, while underwear and t-shirts and shorts can kind of be all folded up in little kind of almost like little envelopes or something, how you would say that. But
yeah, kind of like vertical folding. Yeah. Vertical folding. I would do that. So that means where you fold it into exactly, Ingrid says, like a sort of envelope, and then you can sort of stack them side by side so you can easily see them. So you take the top layer off and then you can easily see what's underneath, and then you could just pick them out. So I would definitely do that. So a combination of kind of folding and rolling, whatever suits you. Both are absolutely fine. Rolling typically is going to take more space horizontally, if that makes sense. And folding is going to make them a little bit higher. And so, but it is a really useful way of doing it rather than stacking things on top of each other. Because if you stack things on top of each other, that's fine, but that is going to probably need you to unpack when you get there. So there is a difference in terms of the way that you do a suitcase, in terms of how you're going to work with your suitcase once you get to your destination. So typically when we go on holiday, even if we go away for 2 weeks, we move around a lot. And so we probably be on the move every 2 or 3 days. So I don't unpack every time. I might unpack if I had a long dress that was getting crumpled or whatever. I might take that out of my suitcase. But other than that, I pretty much leave stuff in my suitcase because I don't want to be packing and unpacking every 2 or 3 days. But if I went somewhere for a week, then I would unpack everything. Yeah. So I think you've got to think that through as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, in the summer when we go camping, I don't unpack my suitcase because even if I've got bring nice tops, I've got nowhere to hang them because there's no cupboard in a tent. So that's why, I try to be smart about. So if I know I've got a really lovely top, but which looks horrible after being in a suitcase for more than 15 minutes, I probably wouldn't take it on holiday because I know it's not going to look great. You know what I mean? So you have to think about these things. What kind of fabrics do I bring? What kind of materials do I like? What still looks good after living in a suitcase? And yeah.
I didn't tell you about my problem when I was on holiday a few weeks ago. So I brought a brand new dress that I'd never worn before, and it was kind of like a satiny silk thing. And so it got really crumpled in the thing. So I thought, that's fine, I'll iron it. And as soon as I put the iron on it, it just went straight through the fabric, and massive brand new dress, just gone.
Oh no.
Because of course you're not used to the irons, are you? In a
oh my
hotel?
word. Yeah.
Just like a massive big whole iron mark. So I just throw it away.
Oh my word.
I know. Nightmare. Anyway,
you conveniently did not tell me about it, Leslie. So I'm glad you're fessing up here on the podcast.
I know, because it's disappointing, isn't it? It's disappointing. It's just one of those things where you're just not used to it, and you're used to your own iron, and all of a sudden it comes and it's like 100 degrees or whatever, and it just goes straight through the fabric. Yeah. So anyway, that wasn't good. So yeah, but do think carefully actually about whether you want to or would iron when you get there as well. Also very relevant. So Ingrid's talking about choosing clothing that is appropriate for packing is very important. But sometimes we want to take things that will get crumpled if we're doing something nice, or, want to wear something that's a bit more elaborate or whatever. And so, but do think about the iron, and do be careful and make sure that you don't do what I did and put the iron through it and then just ruin a brand new, never worn dress.
What a shame. What a shame. What a shame. So, Leslie, have you ever had that you put your toiletries in and that one of the little containers has leaked, and then you've got like shampoo? I mean, I always put my toiletries in a plastic bag. So in a toiletries bag, and then I put a plastic bag around it, because in case something leaks, I mean, that will be your worst nightmare, that half of your clothes have like makeup remover on them.
Yeah, no, but I don't. So I don't put it into a plastic bag, but I do have a toiletries bag that is kind of plastic that I use all the time for anything that's likely to leak. So I have one bag that I wouldn't use it if I was just going away for a night or something and carrying stuff. But if I'm going on the plane, then absolutely I've got this one bag that I use for like bug spray and suntan cream. The thing that it's all those things that might get squashed down and suddenly squirt out, isn't it? Those are the kind of things that you want to avoid. But then makeup and stuff like that I would just put into a normal toiletries bag. So you do need to be careful. And I think another thing that we're quite used to doing is packing everything, and then because we use our makeup and toiletries just before we go, we then put our toiletries on the top of the suitcase, which is a bit of a problem sometimes, because that when they land on airport conveyor belts and things like that, that's when they get thrown around, that's when they pop open. So do make sure that you put your toiletries in the middle of a suitcase. Now, I always use the zip compartment. Quite often there's like a zipper compartment on the top of the suitcase. So I make sure that's full with not hard things, so not shoes, but full with softer things, knickers and socks and bras and pajamas and swimming costumes, those kind of things. So that cushions the toiletries in the middle of the suitcase. So they are effectively on the top, but they are cushioned by the kind of zipper compartment.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really smart. And so fess up then, Leslie, do you have to sit on your suitcase to zip it closed?
No, I don't, because of what I mentioned to you before, really, which is things seem to expand while you're away when you don't pack quite as meticulously. And so I think I need that sort of flexible space when I am at the end of a holiday, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so, there's just something about dirty washing, even dirty washing, you're not going to fold dirty washing, are you? You're just going to put it into a bag. Well, I wouldn't. Would you fold dirty washing? I wouldn't. No. I just put it into a bag and I would then put that into my zipper compartment on the way back. And that would be where my dirty laundry goes, but something bigger. So no, I typically don't have to sit on my suitcase. If I did, then that would be a bit of a problem, I think, because I need that kind of extra space when I come back. Yeah,
I agree. And I think if you really have to sit on your suitcase and almost force that zipper shut, I think you have more chance of things breaking and going wrong and breaking off. And if you have to sit in your suitcase, there's probably a few too many items in your suitcase, listeners. So you might want to take a few bits out and just take out a few bits more before you go traveling and go, okay, let me relook at this before
or you could do what Ingrid does, which is take a 30-kilogram suitcase for a one night overnight trip.
Exactly. That's the perfect advice, Leslie. Thank you.
Anyway, so packing tips, hints and tips in a suitcase. Folding is really, really super useful. We've not talked about packing cubes that much. A lot of people swear by a packing cube. Do I love them? Not really. A bit too much involved for me. I'm a little bit more, I wouldn't say haphazard, but there's a lot involved in trying to fit things into specific size containers, I think. And so I don't think it gives me the flexibility that I would need. So some people love them. If you love a packing cube, go for it. Probably the bigger packing cubes are better than the smaller ones, I would say, because that gives you a little bit more flexibility. But they do look quite nice and neat in your suitcase. And they are great when you're doing rucksacks, trekking around. They're brilliant for things like that. So you can take the whole packing cube out of a holdall or a rucksack. But suitcases, I don't really think they're necessary.
Yeah, interesting. No, I'm not a packing cube person either. I mean, I see them and I think, oh yeah, that looks neat, but I've never actually bought packing cubes or think it's necessary, that I'm missing something. But maybe it's because I put kind of things quite tidily in my suitcase anyway. And I have kind of grouped items together. So I kind of put everything in the same place. So I know where everything is. So I don't need a packing cube to have that. But it does look cool. So if you are a packing cube person and you're like, what? Ingrid and Leslie, what are you talking about? Packing cubes is like the best thing ever. We would love to know this. Leave us a comment on your podcast player or on declutterhub.com /the podcast where you're listening. So we would love to know, don't we, Leslie?
He would, absolutely.
All right.
So how long is it till we go away? A few weeks for me.
Yes.
Less for you.
Yes, I'm well, not on the countdown yet, but yeah, it's getting close now. It's nice. I'm hoping for nice weather, Leslie.
I know. I hope
would be
so
nice.
Too. How many suitcases are you bringing?
Well, there's a suitcase for me, and then there's a bag with shoes, and there's a bag with beach towels, and there's a...
Anyway,
camping is a whole different ball game. Lots of things have to be brought on a camping trip. I keep saying to my husband, can we just please go to an apartment on a beach somewhere? He's like, but everybody loves camping. Everybody except you. You secretly love it too, Ingrid. I'm like, yeah, I know. So yeah, we'll see. We'll have a good time. That's for sure. Wherever we go, it doesn't matter. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Leslie, next week you're talking to Marianne on the podcast, one of our lovely Declutter Hub members who has transformed her workshop with decluttering with us.
Yes, I'm talking to Marianne. I can't wait to talk to her about how she has transformed her floral workshop.
I know, so exciting. And we'll have pictures to share, so we can't wait to show you them in the show notes. So thanks so much for listening. Good luck. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.